I'd like to call the Executive Committee meeting to order for July 26, 2022. Can we get a roll call, please?
Mr. Lear, Mr. Hess, present. Ms. Polk, Ms. Weber, present. Ms. Parker, present. Mr. Fairfield, present. Mr. Carrico, present. Mr. Featherling, present. Mr. Miller, Mr. Long, present. Mr. Hunter, present. Ms. Foster, present. Mr. Wheeler, present. Mr. Seroy, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Any public comment today? I'll make sure we have that opportunity. Approval of minutes, June 28th, 2022. Is there a motion there? Mr. Hunter, Mrs. Parker, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have no legislative, but I need a motion to amend the agenda to allow Anita to go first. She has some things to take care of. Is there a motion? We'll go with Mr. Featherling of Fairfield with a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. All right.
Good morning. I'm going to be real brief this morning. I don't have a lot. In terms of open positions, we're at the lowest point we've been in probably 18 months. We have that now. Remember, that doesn't include corrections. They post their own. They don't use the county's posting. So I know they are still looking for several positions. But we've got 11 total, 3 of which are probation officers. Maintenance mechanic, it took us some time to hire one. We hired one in April timeframe, and we just received a retirement notice for the fall, so that one's back up there. So we'll try again. We seem to have difficulty finding those and getting those filled, so that's a concern, and it's the reason we're going to post it right away and see what we can get over the next few months here. Right now, 4 of the openings on our website are for the public health department, which I don't do any of. I don't get involved in those at all. So I don't see Mr. Beavis here, but he can speak to that and his issues there. I still am pretty deep into collective bargaining agreements. We are currently still working on corrections and coroner. Those are in process. And the maintenance contract ends November 30th of this coming year. So in an act of forward thinking, we've started work on kind of some thought process there on changing some things within that from a management point. So we've gotten the notice to bargain, and we've reached out to the union on that, but that'll probably start within the next, say, 30-45 days or so. And then lastly, group health insurance, that renewal will be coming up soon. Tomorrow in finance, Mr. Lynch will be here, our broker, to explain kind of our run rate. I think looking at the reports that I get, the issue is not so much this year the cost of our claims, but clearly it's going to be inflation and cost of living, and understanding what the trends they're seeing in the marketplace related to renewals and what that will be. So obviously some concern there. Mr. Lynch will be here tomorrow to kind of talk you through that. That's all I have, unless there are any questions.
Anyone? Mr. Hunter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Anita, do we do exit interviews, and who reviews those?
We do not do exit interviews. I would say as a whole within the HR community, it's no longer a best practice. A lot of companies have moved away from that. It's your manager should, and obviously elected officials should, have conversations with employees before they leave, but sending them to HR does not occur. I will say this, as a general rule, if employees have issues within their department, they tend to call me or email me to discuss them. And the manager is the one who has the relationship with the employee.
And how often do we do the EO 1s or 4s? How often do we do those?
EEO4 is every other year, and we did it last year, so we won't do it this year.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Great, thanks. Have a good one. All right. Information services, Kevin, do you have anything today for us?
This is okay to speak from here, right? Just gonna be brief.
We're gonna need you to go down the hall.
Out
No,
to
I'm
the
just
hall.
kidding. Yeah, I'm just kidding.
I knew I was setting you up. Just briefly, of course my phone goes off at that time. Update on the IT department's part in the land bank position. You approved that. I've talked with the chairman, I've talked to Delbert. We're going to be acquiring the equipment for that position. We've talked about where it's going to go inside the planning department, and the chairman has okayed what our plan for to acquire the equipment. So once Dell says the room's ready to go, we'll put it in there. The city is going to provide the email and the domain for that for their website. That's part of their contribution, but overall that seems like that's going to run pretty smoothly. Anything else, chairman usually keeps me aware of.
Yeah, this board, or this body right here today, committee, has to pass it as a policy document, then the full board, but then we would move forward. We're just getting all that together now on what would happen if we move forward. So just an FYI, I want to make sure that's clear. We're not gonna go out and buy it. We're not gonna do all these different things.
Has
We're just
not
getting ready
purchased,
to
it's
do that.
approved.
So, and will the cyber insurance, they'll be on ours, all that stuff, because it's on our
Yes, because we're
network, they're our
providing it.
employee and all that stuff.
It's our acquisition. We're acquiring the equipment and providing it as part of our agreement, so we should be easily covered because it's our equipment.
It's our
at that
employee.
point.
Yeah. Okay.
Next is last meeting or so, I've discussed that we were going to update the security system in the recorder's office. I've met with Lori. We've actually completed that. We actually ripped out their old system, put in a new security network, which is all the wiring, everything high definition, quick access hard drives, high definition cameras. We expanded the coverage on it, so we have complete coverage over every publicly accessed section in their office. Which is something that's been a goal of mine, not just hers, but other offices in this building. Jason did most of that work after hours, so we make sure we don't disrupt them because it's a very messy and time-consuming project. But that's been completed. The next project I hope to do is, I've discussed it with Delbert and the chairman, we're going to put a new system into theirs. In fact, we're going to put in their first system in there. My goal for this building is to every place that the public can access to put high definition cameras internally. Previously, it's been that it's been on a request basis by department. I believe given the environment that the world is in now, we need to go the extra step. So if the public can be somewhere, we're gonna have cameras covering that area. Previously, we didn't worry as much about it because we've always had outside cameras, but this year in addition, you expanded your outside coverage, so all doors are covered that way. Now we want to make sure we cover inside any place that the public can be. I knew we were going to be going at this way, so I've built it in the budget, so I'm not in my budget, so I don't really have to come back for you. And we've been doing this over years. We upgraded the 5th floor's systems and some other ones, so we're doing it per floor as time allows. So I shouldn't have to ever come back and ask you for equipment. It's mostly our time that's involved into it. In general, that's an update where we're sitting.
Just as a side, that camera project that we've been doing and just moving forward in a methodical pace really paid off with the courthouse lawn shooting. We had put that camera in there. It is high def can be, and we got a lot of it. So the courts, I'm sure, are appreciative of what that got, and it was the best angle possible. Yeah.
That's the additional thing is the annex and the courthouse and the other buildings, including the sheriff, already has cameras inside, and we have expanded it outside here. the last step for us is to hit the public access inside. We already have it at the other building, so we have a coverage. No, there's not somebody watching it to see what happens at that time. That's not how cameras work. It's after the fact. It helps police, it helps law enforcement go back and identify what happened at that time. So if you have any questions, that's my update.
Just one, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Hunter.
What kind of panic button system do we have in this building?
That would be Wes's department, but we've had it since I've been here, and I believe they've upgraded that recently, but Wes could speak more to that. I don't know if the chairman's worked with him on that, but we've had panic buttons as long as I can be here, since I've been here.
They're
Is it
strategically
universal?
all over the place.
Ever?
Yeah, there's, I won't disclose where, but yes, they're accessible. And by accident, I found one of them one day. I got to experience it firsthand.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Kevin? Thank you. Alrighty, moving on. Let's see here. Mr. Beavis isn't here today. I don't see a report in the packet. Nothing from schools today. I was hoping Greg would have a swan song appearance, but he did not. So we will go to the VAC with Karen Smatansky. All right. Yes. 14.
Mr. Beavis's report is in,
It is in there?
yeah, it's on page 2.
Okay, I flipped through. I didn't see it. I'm sorry. Well, then I need a motion to approve the report then, or accept it.
So moved.
Mr. Seroy, Mr. Fairfield, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Real quick, once we get into the actual building, we have to go into executive session after advice of counsel.
Okay.
Because there's prices in there. We can't talk about the building. It has to go to executive session.
Okay.
So as far as the do you have anything else to talk about besides that?
No.
All right, I need a motion to go into executive session to talk about real estate, 5 ILC 120/2C5. Mr. Long, Mr. Featherling. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Ms. Weber?
Aye.
Ms. Parker?
Aye.
Mr. Fairfield?
Aye.
Mr. Carrico?
Aye.
Mr. Featherling?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Long?
Aye.
Mr. Hunter? Ms. Foster? Mr. Wheeler?
Aye.
Mr. Seroy?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Great. So when we come back, we'll be, for the public, we'll be able to give an explanation retracting some of the details because there's some things that shouldn't be out there. Competitive nature of property, prices, all that kind of stuff. So. All righty, it looks like all board members are present,
Yeah.
and we are back from executive session. All righty, if we could, Karen, could you give us just a brief, without any of the details we spoke of regarding the specificity of any negotiations, but what the VAC is looking to do and looking for there's not an action item, but how this process would work, I guess.
Boy, it's hard to dumb it down. So the VAC was approached a while back to move the offices to the clinic in Bourbonnais. There's office space available to the back side of that is open and basically move-in ready. So we are looking at it, looking at the open space and working on the process and seeing what is available and working through that. Is that good enough?
Yeah, well, and you could talk about the synergies it might provide with the other services in the building and some things you're thinking about adding to that.
Sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a great location. There are actually showers in the building in that location. So that would give us the opportunity to provide showers for homeless veterans. There's space for us to hopefully have a food pantry if we wanted to have a food pantry in our location, or even bring in a food pantry on another floor eventually. But overall, there's plenty of space for us now with growth potential. The offices, gosh, I don't even know. Yeah, I mean, I'm open to questions. It's just beautiful. What can I say?
And it's in a location that has other veteran services already present?
Yes, the clinic, the VA clinic is actually right around the corner from it on the 3rd floor. So the VA clinic sees 60 to 150 veterans a day, and we see about 200 veterans on an average monthly basis. So it will increase our overall presence and clientele astronomically. We can't even imagine what it'll do to our everyday business.
And so you're looking to move, what time of the year would you want to maybe occupy?
We're hoping to move before winter hits, just because I don't want to move when it gets cold. I'm not a cold weather person, so I'm shooting for October, November at the latest. So.
And budgetarily, this is something that you guys can handle out of current this year's budget and the future budgets, pending, obviously there's no changes, but we foresee that not happening.
I am on target with hoping that it can all be done.
Good,
yes.
Good. Is there any questions from the board along these lines or thoughts? Mr. Seroy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Smistansky, the VA is also expanding, correct?
That is correct.
So it would be a one-stop shop for our veterans in the area. So they would have to go to one location to get their medical treatment and to see the VAC, correct?
That is correct, and that is really the ultimate goal, is like one location for veterans to do everything they could possibly need.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, we have some members of the VAC here, the board, friends, associates. If you have any comment, you can step up to the, we named it the Jim Wasser Memorial Tongue Lashing Microphone over there in the corner. I didn't know if you had any comments, if you guys want to show some support behind this or any thoughts.
I only lash when you don't do your job.
I've got to hear it once.
That's fine. Certainly, I want to thank you for allowing us to stay during the executive session and what Karen has done. A couple things, too, that she didn't mention, and it's very important, is the parking capabilities out there also.
I always forget.
Okay, that really gives us a good edge. Yeah. And certainly all of us here are veterans advocates, and I look at just the figures, and our ranks are thin. Roughly 348 World War II veterans today are passing, 500 Korean veterans, and 490 to 400 Vietnam veterans. I don't have the figures on what's has happened in Desert Storm, but now with the burn pits and everything, and Camp Lejeune and all that other stuff, it's going to do nothing but increase. But what I've seen here, and I'm also active with Buddy Check 22, that's not even counting the suicides and the things. If they could get these helps, we may not have these figures, but she has done a very, very nice job. We're very proud, certainly, of what she does. And I'm not here to blow anybody's skirt up, okay? But I do want to tell you, since I have been coming to these meetings periodically, I must tell you, and I don't, if this affects you, fine. It's the first time I have actually felt confident with my county board in about 20 years. And I will tell you, before, I used to come to the meetings and I felt that about 10 of your group really cared, and the rest of them, I used to make the joke, and I'm not being funny, that if you wanted to see people move, is you look when the post office gets off of work and when the county board adjourns. They get out here as quick as they can. But now I feel very confident of the people that we have in all the districts, and I'm very proud to be here today and proud of what you guys are doing, and especially what Karen has done. She's really personally kick-ass, and she's just an alpha female, and I certainly love being around alpha females. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wasser. And thank you for your service, all of you. It's, you know, Jim and I go way back, Kenki school board days maybe. And he's always been an advocate for the VAC veterans, and also not afraid to let us know when we weren't doing things quite the right way here in the board level. And that helps. It wasn't personal, it was about the job. And Mr. Hunter, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Karen, what about transportation systems for our veterans? And I'm speaking in terms of I have a bunch of guys that I grew up with in an eastern part of the county, who have suffered tremendously from all that bullshit, all that stuff in Vietnam and stuff. I'm sorry, and they're still experiencing, the problems they had with being in Vietnam and having to contend with all that stuff and seeing all the tragedies of their fellow officers and infantrymen dying and stuff. And I was telling Stan Olenjack on my street, North Rosewood, there's a family of the Jackson family had a bunch of guys. All of them were in the military. Barry, Jerry, Butch, Billy, all of them are dead now, around my age. They're dead now because of Agent Orange and hitting booby traps and all this stuff and being maimed from that stuff. We can't do enough for the veterans. Thank God I didn't have to go when I was in college, But, guys that lived across the hall, got drafted and shot down in helicopters and stuff. So I've seen that stuff. But what kind of special transportation do you have for them to receive the services?
So we have a bus that runs to Hines every day, but around town there isn't anything. I mean, the show bus or Metro or whatever, but as far as around town, there isn't anything besides the normal local.
Yeah, what I'm thinking about, I mean, I know the show bus and so forth, but I was speaking specifically for people in Pembroke, because I know some guys that were in Vietnam and all that stuff, as I mentioned. Will you look into that in terms of maybe identifying some special initiatives for those areas?
Mr. Hunter, if I could, that's one of the areas we're looking for our bus barn, is out in that neck of the woods, because
Okay.
it's centrally located to our service area, and they can go point to point for service in town and back out. So there is going to be a mechanism, rather rapid, if you will, in terms of show bus in that area. And then we'll also connect to the metro routes if they want to do other things in town and then go back out. So we could talk to River Valley about a bus stop that's either close by, or they could, if it's somebody who's dealing with a disability, they could be dropped at the door, you know what I mean, that kind of stuff. So there's things I think we can work out as we go forward. And they're very receptive at River Valley Metro on
Glad to
this
hear
type of
there's
stuff.
discussions pending. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And we also shouldn't, just real quick, we also shouldn't forget there's people that, I know a gentleman who was in Somalia, and it's just not the physical stuff. It's when your rules of engagement don't let you return fire on snipers, tends to do something to you. You know what I mean? And there's a cost mentally to that kind of stuff too. And I think those services are a big part of what you're talking about.
Yep.
So please, Ms. Foster, thank you.
I just want to piggyback on that, because I did see you all do transportation. Do you do anything as far as coordination? Because we do have a show bus does come to Pembroke. If a veteran called and said, I need to get to Hines, however, they need to get from Pembroke perhaps to your office to catch the bus that goes to Hines. Do you all do any kind of coordination with that?
No, but I don't know what hours the show bus runs. But if anybody had questions about that, they could certainly call our office and we could see if there's issues, because I'm pretty sure it starts early enough to catch our bus, because our bus leaves at 7 and I think the show bus starts really early. So
Yeah, they're usually in Pembroke at 7.
okay.
And it's point-to-point service. They have
yeah.
deviated fixed routes that take the people from mostly Kankakee to their jobs in Moments.
Yeah.
But then there's deviated fixed routes where they call up a couple days before and say, I need to be
Right.
at this place at so-and-so, and I need to ride home at this time.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and I think we've worked with other people that have had to be, and not necessarily from Pembroke, but that have had to be to the bus, and they've gotten there. So, but we could certainly work with them. So, certainly if you have people, have them call our office and see if we can work with them to get them there. Ours is separate from the VA clinic, and we're going to keep 2 separate buses going, because they run it one time and we run it another, and it's worked out well. So we'll keep the 2 buses running, even if and when we move over there, we will keep 2 separate buses running, so.
Okay.
Alrighty. Any other questions? You know, there's nothing to vote on, but I think the committee seems like they're okay with this type of process, and we'll have more to vote on when we have more to vote on, right? Make sense? This is good. I love talking about good stuff. Thank you so much. Anything else? I'm sorry.
Nope.
All
Hey,
right.
Heroes, Hogs, and Hot Rods is August 6th, so if, don't forget that. That's in Mantino, August 6th all day, so don't forget that. Oh, you got one in the back.
Mr. Hess.
Make a motion to approve her report for the month.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. We got to switch places. Second by Mr. Long. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. I don't know. I'm off or something.
We did all that, we did the monthly report.
Alrighty. Under administrative, we have the appointment of John Scotsma to the St. Anne Fire Protection District and appointment of Colton Eckhoff to the Kenki County Regional Planning Commission. Is there a motion to combine and approve? Mr. Long, Mr. Hunter. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I'll announce the openings here. One opening, Clawson Park Drainage District, X-Line Creek Drainage District, Pilot Township Fire Protection, and St. Anne Fire Protection. 2 openings on the following: Kankakee River Valley Forest Preserve District Board, Canavan Drainage District, and Mantino number 9 Drainage, and 6 openings on the Regional Planning Commission. We are readdressing that. We're looking at the non-attendance, people that haven't been there in over a year, and we may be back to this committee with a change in policy. Well, we may look at 1 to 3 years, but there's been people that haven't shown up for 3 years, and the way we do our appointments is until a replacement is found, like 2 years until a replacement is found. So technically they're still there. It creates huge quorum issues. So when you have 17 people on a commission and 7 of them show up, that should be enough to do business, but we can't. So that kind of lets you know the problem we have. We may actually trim that number back, not to have so many, so we can get active people and get business done, or assist the county board in doing their business, which is that role. Moving on, holidays to be observed by the offices in Kenki County for the year 23, even though it's just functionary. A new motion to approve these. This comes out of the courts, so it's Ms. Parker. Second, Mr. Carrico. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Thank you. Now, the approval of the Kenki Regional Land Bank Services Agreement through November 2024. Most people have probably heard of this. We've been going through committee meetings working this out. Briefly, I'll try to do this briefly. The city and the county formed another governmental body with no tax levy, obviously, but it's another governmental body to address all the vacant, underdeveloped, boarded up, commercially unviable properties that are just sitting in our county and in the city of Kankakee. Other communities can join, and they will coming up here, and then we could utilize Kankakee's home rule powers in all these areas, and we'll use our powers as the trustee of all these properties to be able to get them repurposed and back on the tax rolls. There's a lot of different things that can be done here, and it's an amazing revitalization tool once it's working. What we're doing here is we're getting it up and running, and we have there's a grant about $197,000, I believe. It's in here somewhere, but the city of Kankakee got that grant, and that grant is going to be used to fund the executive director position, if you will, of the land bank for the next 2.5 years, and cover any miscellaneous expenses. That's going to be over here, like just various little things. But the in essence, this agreement is almost exactly like the alliance agreement that we have, whereas in order to provide benefits, they're going to be a county employee. So their insurance, their IMRF, all the payroll, all that's going to be done by the county, and for that there's an administrative fee to do that, but also it provides that umbrella of insurance and protection, and we're going to give them an office here in the county building to operate out of. Now realize this is a revenue job too. If they're doing their job over the next couple of years, we should start to see properties flip, and you make the land bank makes money. And I can do an example, and I'll tell you in a minute. But they make a little gap on what we acquire the property for and what we sell it to a developer for. That goes back in to buy more properties and fund the operations of the land bank. Hopefully the land bank is putting itself out of business, if you will, because we've taken all these boarded up houses, we've taken these business locations that have 7-figure liens on them and fines and all this other stuff. We've wiped them away. The developer wouldn't pay $1.8 million for a building that's worth $200,000 when they got to put $500 into it to get it up to be viable. So if we're able to wipe away the liens and the back taxes based on a developer doing something with this project, commercial business, or developer doing something with this home, or this developer doing something with this entire block of homes, then that is something that's good for the taxpayers, because we've now spread the tax base out and we can take less from each person. That's the goal, is to have a broader tax base, and so you don't have few paying for everything, which is kind of the way that it goes. Not few, but you know, it's not producing tax revenue, that levy still has to be met by some payer. The levies aren't going down, if you haven't noticed. By the way, 80% is the schools, so don't come to me. So anyway, this position needs to be housed somewhere and needs to have benefits and the IMRF and all of the other things that go with that. They will be our employee, and per the agreement, you see all the details, but they are the choice of the land bank. We will budget for them here, but their expenses are paid for by that grant for the next 2.5 years by the city of Kenki. Well, it comes through IDA, through Kenki to the land bank. Our end is real cash money, so really we're the ones putting in money right now, and it's roughly in the $20,000 range for benefits and the FICA, you know, a little bit more. I've got a breakdown in here, but we're not charging them rent per square foot and all of that kind of stuff. So it's a way to help get the land bank up and running. The goal would be down the road, our end is the benefits. And by the way, this has to be renewed after 24, every 2 years by the board. Just like the Alliance, every 2 years it has to be redone. So we have opportunities to change this as things go down the road. But from right now, we have agreement from the land bank and from Kenki. All of our lawyers have been working on this. John was working with their legal team. And we have the basis of an agreement right now for that has already been approved by the PZA, and now it's coming here, and then it would go to full board. So I hope that makes sense. If there's any specific questions, I'll try to do my best to answer them. Ben is here, he's been part of it, and John is here as well. Mr. Featherstone.
Yeah, is it supervised through Delbert then, in the planning department?
No, it's supervised by the land bank board.
By the land bank board, okay.
Exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
So nobody on that floor, in the second floor, is responsible for him now?
Well, in terms of, you know, providing the space and all of that kind of stuff,
Lights
yes,
on, things like
but
that.
they actually report to the land bank board.
Okay.
It's our employee on loan to them.
Okay.
We don't manage that, and the city of Kenki doesn't manage that employee.
Okay.
We have appointed people to this board to be the managers of this individual.
Okay.
And we don't want, but they are going to be working with our this is a perfect synergy. I got to tell you, the way that land banks work with code departments, it is a symbiotic relationship. We both get something out of it. We're able to watch those properties that are problems falling in, roofs going in, and we can address them. We have a lot of those in the county. Ben, how many of those do we have in the county? Do you remember?
36.
Vacant houses, absent owners, stuff. I mean, it's staggering how many we had. So I'm not going to put you on the spot for the number, but it's bigger than a bread box, as they say. So the city has a lot too. They're getting their hands around what they have. They got whole blocks that are boarded up. That's the best way to change a community, is to do the whole block. You know, in my opinion. Mr. Hunter.
A couple questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. One of which is, would the Kresge building fall in that category? That's my first question. And the second question is, tell me about the interview process. Is the land bank committee going to be doing the interviews and the selection? Explain that to me.
Yeah, the first thing is Kresge right here on the corner. Okay. Yes, sir.
Should we have a motion to approve this before we get into discussion.
Sounds like you're making one. Is that cool?
That, yes,
All right.
I am.
I don't have a problem with that.
No, yeah, just procedurally, let's make the motion.
I think
Second on
before
that?
we get into discussion, yeah.
Second, Mr. Ciroy on that one? Okay. Now, go ahead, please.
Yeah, no problem.
So the building on the corner here, I call it the Chamber Building, Kresge. Gosh, what was it? Was it a computer store years ago too? It's been stuff. But you're right, lots of liens on the building, 7 figures, nobody really doing anything with it. That's something that a developer, we could work a deal, and that's this person's job, is to go talk to the developer, talk to the taxing bodies in the municipality and say, what would it take to get you going? You know, so we have somebody that wants to develop this property, or what would it take for you to put the money into it and make this property viable? Because they may be paying their taxes, but it's an albatross on a downtown area.
Yes.
You know, and that's kind of, or we have whole underdeveloped subdivisions out in the rural area, or that are falling in on themselves in certain areas. You'll see Mr. Featherling has these random houses out there that are completely either burned out, and no one's ever going to pay the fines or the fees. Well, let's just get them away from the owner and see if someone's going to redevelop these, because they're not paying taxes on them. They've been bought and sold so many times. So,
But you know, the reason why I posed the question before the motion to approve, you know, my answering my questions dictates how I'm going to vote.
sure.
I support the land bank concept, and I'd like to see more color on the land bank. You got Victor Navarez as the only person of color on that land bank. In fact, Manoshevsky said the same thing when I attended the first meeting. Let's think about that as well too. I don't know if that's a concrete composition of the land bank, if there could be additional people or members of the land bank, but think about that though. One person of color on that particular committee. Now, now my second question was, how is the interview process done?
It is done through the land bank, and then the recommendation is made on who the hire is, and that is something that I would bring over to this board. We would have to approve the hire.
Okay, so is there a committee of the land bank or the committee of the whole?
It's the committee of the whole. They're gonna go through the process. They have officers. Now, the one thing I will say is that the bylaws dictate that there will be other people added to this, to the land bank, after they're getting their house in order, if you will, to go that route. And the first thing they do, because they actually have some things on tap very close to us right here that they're looking to do, you know, in downtown. But then there's also other things that we're talking about in the rural area. So we've got business to do. And so the key is get the legal side of this set up, get things moving with someone who can be the actual boots on the ground to get this done, then fill out the board to help provide that target, like you're speaking of, that focus on certain things. And so that's going to be a lot broader than I want to say industry experts that we had on there to start with finance guys, commercial real estate people, residential real estate people, architects. So we had to get, you know, we got a nice, really good grasp of what the opportunities are and how to, I don't want to say exploit the market, but really that's what we're talking about. Exploit the market or lack thereof to create opportunity. So what you're saying is actually absolutely the next step, I think, after the executive director. It's up to them to decide that, but that's my recommendation as well. And these other communities can do that as well.
You know, the issue of Kresge building, and that'd be monumental in terms of downtown Kenki.
Yeah.
And getting that stuff, that property put back on the tax roll, and some development. That's important. I'd like to see that as a priority.
And so we know, and I appreciate that, and that's why Kenki's all in on this. They know what it'll do for them. You know, and having facades that are falling off on sidewalks that are all boarded up and things like that. There are other things that are perceived blight and real blight. The perceived one keeps people from shopping or feeling safe. You know, that broken window, broken business book, it's true. It works. People don't go to places that have broken windows to spend their money. It's just a natural human reaction. So we're trying to fix that. Any other thoughts on this? All right, because this board, we would need to approve this here as a policy agreement, then it goes to the full board. The other thing is that grant expires mid-August. So we had to move on this, or we wouldn't be able to pay anybody. We wouldn't have the money to pay anybody. We would have lost it's in here somewhere, 97,000, I believe. So That's another reason why it's now we got to do this, then we got to do that. I just can't let that money go away. Or excuse me, they can't let that money go away. Any other thoughts? Ben, do you have anything to add? You've been around for this, John? Did I summarize it okay? All right. Well, then we have a motion and a second. We are going to spend money, so it would be a roll call.
Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Ms. Weber? Aye. Ms. Parker? Mr. Fairfield?
Aye.
Mr. Carrico?
Aye.
Mr. Featherling? Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Hunter?
Aye.
Ms. Foster? Mr. Wheeler?
Aye.
Mr. Searoy?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. It's kind of a big day. This means something. It really does. This tool is to go along with a lot of other things. You start to look at this, an enterprise zone, opportunity zone, TIF. There's a lot of incentives to do some big things in downtown Kankakee and also in the rural areas as well. Yes, sir.
I'd like to say that a lot of people talk about bringing things back on the tax rolls, but they don't talk about the property values in the area. I mean, you take a couple of boarded up buildings and fix them up and make them look nice, then it gets contagious and it goes down the street and then all the values go up and then the county's revenue goes up on the tax base too. So,
Yep.
you know, the assessed evaluation. So a lot of people forget about that part of it.
The biggest problem land banks had is that sustainable money. Because it's
The snowball.
you have to, it's a churn business. You got to get a property in and get it out, get a gap on that, you know, do whatever your margin is, and then get back out and reinvest that. So it's not a money making situation, and it's not a friends and family situation. It's a deal situation. What can we do, and what's the biggest impact we can make in that regard? Mr. Hess.
Thank you, Chairman. The Economic Alliance comes and gives us an annual report. Are we looking for the land bank to come and do that same thing? I mean, the
Exactly.
report that Mr. Nugent gives us is a summary, and I think that would be something we should look at.
Oh, absolutely. And it was to the point where I was wondering, do we have a quarterly report at PZA of just the activity? Dell could bring in, they could give them, like, once we get some things moving, obviously it's not right away, but once we get projects, there'll be project X, project Y. We won't talk about it, but because it's still in play, you know what I mean? But we'll be able to know more. I think that's entirely appropriate. You know, and going back to that, you know, the Alliance comes in every year. The CVB comes in every year. You know, the CVB is if we ask them, you know, we say, hey, we want to see copies of your audits, they have to provide those. But know that if we would already know if there was a problem with their audits because they would have lost their grants. So I don't ask them for their audits because I don't need to see their audits because there's no problem with their audits. I hope that makes sense. And it's the same thing with the Alliance. They come in and tell us about what they're up to, what they've achieved, what they're focusing on. They have a board for their own oversight in that matter. So, and we appoint people to that, and they report back to us, and they talk to me about what's going on. So, in that regard, we are fulfilling our responsibilities with all these organizations by bringing them here into the county board, for sure. Anybody else? All right, looks like I got some old business. Anyone? New business? Old? Motion to adjourn?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hess, a second with Mr. Mr. Featherling with a motion, Mr. Hess with a second. Sorry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.